I'm a firm believer in, building long-term relationships and networks and things like that. I think you and I have just hit our 11-year anniversary of knowing each other of some sorts.
Yes. Wow, time flies. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I guess when I think about it, sure, it makes sense.
I don't know if that's true. I'm just thinking 2012. It's 2013.
Yeah.
I failed math.
Probably close. Probably closer to 12 years. But yeah, it's been a while.
One of the things that I did write about this in Anomaly, but I do believe it, and it was a cool little thing that I remember you always kind of just doing early on is after a meeting with someone, you would ask them like, "Is there anyone else that I should meet?" type of thing. And I think a lot of people don't do that. And it's interesting how like just an introduction can go somewhere. That's how I met today's guest, is by an introduction from someone else when I had Hampton Roads Business Weekly. And so I said, "Hey, like, is there anyone that I should meet?" I'd already known this person for a while, and then they're like, "Yeah, you got to meet Michael Wagner." And it's always cool to learn about a business they had no idea about, and then kind of just follow that journey throughout. And where do you think people are on that kind of engine of doing correct introductions and stuff like that these days, Tim?
I don't think relationships rule the world for sure. Certainly in the business sense, I don't think that people. I think the cliche or whatever we say a lot is relationships are like muscles. The more you use them, the stronger they get. And I don't think that people leverage them enough, honestly.
You think people are afraid?
I don't know.
Inconveniencing people, something like that?
I'm not sure. I mean, there might be some aspect to it in terms of if I'm asking for help, there's some sort of sign of weakness. I don't know, but it'd be interesting. I would be interested to hear Michael's take on relationships and how he leverages them.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Michael Wagner, lead man at Pool Scouts, a pretty rad company that's headquartered here. The story behind it, we'll let you tell it, but like I think I met you 2015, 2016 time frame. Y'all were at the Trashmore location at that point.
Correct.
Were you a part of what was Mosquito Joe associated at that point? They had to have been, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Mosquito Joe was the first brand that was started in 2012, and what became Buzz Franchise Brands, which is what we are now, a multi-brand franchisor. We had Mosquito Joe from 2012, from its inception until its sale in 2018. And Buzz Franchise Brands, or BFB as we call it, is now a 4-brand franchisor with about 75 people that support our corporate brands and team here in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
One of the first things that, and I don't even know if you can tell this, Tim, but the logo that you see on the back, the Pool Scouts logo, along with all of the other Buzz Franchise Brands logos, like as soon as you see them, you're like, wow, that's different from like your traditional like at-home services, where there's this, like, I think the name of this episode is like polishing a blue collar business. Like you look at these things and you're like, okay, like that person can come and fix my thing. They can do my yard. They can do my pool, whatever. But then to have like this polish and like a nice looking logo and things like that, like you really don't see that in these kind of brands. And I remember one of the first time, and maybe it was the first time that we had ever met and chatted, you said something like that. It's like, yeah, like we polish a blue collar business. We come in with a nice looking a polo, a logo on there, and as simple as it might seem, it's damn good looking, and it makes people feel, I think, a lot more safe in a situation. There's not just some like random.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to articulate it. Like you just see like these other brands that are around there. And you're like, okay, like it's not as friendly.
Yeah, I think one thing with home service brands, which or I would say 3 of our brands rather, are home service brands. One is British Swim School, which is a different but service to teaching children how to swim through leased pool space. But there's such an opportunity to professionalize historically mom and pop businesses. And in the case of Pool Scouts, we didn't invent the pool service and repair business, but we've certainly professionalized it with a brand to start with, true marketing, very focused, targeted marketing, and then just standards that are above and beyond what the historic mom and pop businesses have out there. And it really just gives us a competitive advantage. And back to the consumer, really gives them more communication, better communication, higher standards, brand standards, which of course we enforce. And then ultimately local ownership at the franchisee level, that it's somebody back in the business who's in their community as well. We do that with Home Clean Heroes and our Wonderly holiday lighting business. And then British Swim School is a little bit different from it not being a home service, but rather teaching kids how to swim through leased pool space, but at a higher standard with all of the brand standards that we bring to the table as well. So there's really an opportunity to differentiate, which makes us more competitive, candidly.
How did you come up with Mosquito Joe as the first one to come out of the gate with?
Well, I can't take any credit for that because that was before I came here. But Kevin Wilson is the CEO and founder of Buzz Franchise Brands, and Kevin's a brilliant entrepreneur, one of the smartest people I know, candidly. But had done research. He had worked in investment groups in the past, and had really done a lot of work in franchising. He even had a franchise, a company called Benny's Bagels back in Dallas, Texas, a while back. He came from the Bain background, consultant background, so really, really smart and entrepreneurial, and then had worked in equity with investments in franchise, and really researched and understood this space around mosquito eradication specifically as a pest control category, and actually acquired Mosquito Joe, which was being run out of a plant nursery about 5 miles from where we're located right now. And the acquisition included a couple vehicles and a few hundred customers, but took that and franchised and built it right out of the gate from 0 units, or the one that we bought, to ultimately 340 units across the country in 37 different states, until when it was sold in 2018. So there were a lot of things that made that happen. I'd say that the most important thing was the leadership team that drove that, led by Kevin, Brian Garrison, who's our COO and president now of Buzz Franchise Brands, Angela Pauls, who's our chief marketing officer, Mike Hull, who's our CFO, and then a team of people that were involved in just building that brand. There were things that were environmental that helped fuel that, some which were things like West Nile and Zika virus, and just an overall awareness of the category and the space. But then it was just really an exceptional unit economic model developed by that team of people that I mentioned, and others that helped fuel the growth from a franchising perspective. Great business, simple business model, scalable, and it just rock and rolled. The future of it was great. So I came on board in 2015 here to start the second brand. Different than Mosquito Joe, where a lot of the brand new the customers were brand new to that category. We were really professionalizing an existing space where there were tons and tons of competitors out there, namely mom and pops. But we had this opportunity to take a business and really professionalize it. And we've had a good run so far. It's been a lot of fun to build to where we are now, with 49 unique franchisees, 105 locations across now 17 different states. And our business is, as the way I describe it, it's not a sexy business, but for me, things about it are really sexy. We go and we clean and maintain and repair residential swimming pools, but it's a recurring service. It's predictable. It's scalable. We know exactly who our target customers are, which is really sexy, and having the ability to target market. And then we just, we're in people's backyards on a regular recurring basis. So there's a lot of predictability and scalability around the business. So that's kind of a little bit of the story on Mosquito Joe and how that segued into Pool Scouts. There were a lot of similarities in that it was a home service business. We knew that it was vehicles and technicians out in the field, and some of the business model side of things was similar, albeit the service was different.
Yeah, because it's really, I'm just thinking about it in the sense of, at least from my point of view, it seems like you were kind of creating a new market segment, new category, and just to how you implement that and how you scale that. It seems like an interesting project to take on, and watching that grow, watching it spread, looking at the map behind you, putting a new thumbtack in, I'm assuming what would be a new location. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see in franchising how you define what your territory is. And I think there are so many different ways people think of franchising, and often they think of fast food or fast casual or restaurants. And, there's so many different categories of franchising out there. And, in our business, in the home service business, we have such, like I mentioned, a target focus, specific focus on who we service, and then we build our territories accordingly. So for us, a territory that we would award a new franchisee would consist of single family homes with in-ground pools with incomes above $100,000. And we map and protect those by zip code and award those to franchisees. So that's up to 10,000 target households per territory. And then we take those target households and we market to those specifically. So really defining territory and turf is important to understand as people, investigate what franchises include. So in restaurants, sometimes they'll say, well, you can't have another restaurant within a certain number of miles away or whatever it might be. And you see obviously scale happen in a different way. But for us, it's all about the geography and the definition of the territories. And all of our brands have those defined territories, which really protect the franchisee. So our franchisees are never competing against each other. They have their turf, they have their area, and they want their neighboring franchisee to be just as successful, if not more than them, because they help build the overall greater good of the brand. And that's true, like I said, with all of our brands.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a franchise perspective, no matter where you go, or anything that's kind of worldwide, maybe even just national, let's talk about like McDonald's, right? Like you go to McDonald's and you're basically going to eat the same Big Mac here that you are in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And while people might not love, the Big Mac, there is something that's nice about that exactly what you're going to get every single time. And that's maybe not polish with McDonald's, but it is something that is unique. And that you're going to get the same service at every location. And that's powerful. So you talk about really knowing your target customer and how sexy that is. How did you guys figure out that it is, in-ground pools above six figures? Was it an easy thing? Was it a hard thing? Because I think most businesses, most entrepreneurs that are struggling to figure out what's going wrong, they really have no idea who their actual target customer is. And because you guys have been so successful in growth through multiple brands of that, like, what's the special sauce to figure that out?
Well, I think, when you start a franchise brand, you have to define, what your parameters are from the very beginning. And, since we started in 2016, we've made adjustments accordingly. Originally, our income threshold was $75,000. The number of target households has grown to up to 10,000, as I mentioned before. And then even the definition of our services and what products we offer in the way of services has grown as we've grown what I would call a share of the wallet with our customers. So I think those things migrate. How that might translate into, the original McDonald's didn't offer a milkshake, but somebody decided a milkshake was a great thing to add, and ultimately that became part of the product sphere of what they were offering and selling. So I think things, keeping our ears to our customers, and in our case, our franchisees are our customers. So that's who we're serving, is just listening and learning and finding the best practices that happen. And that's true with any franchise brand, but some of the best ideas and some of the most important things, whether it's a positive or a negative, things not to do, you learn from listening to the franchisees and really being engaged and involved in their development. So it has been a migration, and that's true with any franchise brand. You got to be listening. You put up your parameters and your definitions. That's different though, and I think this is different from true entrepreneurship. When you start a business, you have an idea, a premise, and you're going down a path. And sometimes in starting a business from zero, you have something comes up, and it could be your business is going to go in this direction. And maybe that's really the aha moment where you're deciding which path to go down. In franchising, you want to set these parameters up to say, we're going to keep you within these guardrails, and you're going to follow what we call a unit economic model. And we're going to make changes and improve that unit economic model constantly, but we're not going to let you go over here, because that's not what we're about. We're about really defining the parameters of what you do and making sure you stay within the guardrails as well. And that goes to services and products offered, who your target customers are, how you acquire those, and how you do the operation itself, which is the unit economic model.
This may sound like a really silly question, but so you define who your customers are, you have that target demographic. How do you determine like what areas have like the most pools per household?
Yeah.
I mean, do you look at like satellite imagery and like, oh, there's a lot of pools there? I mean,
part of our special sauce, Tim, honestly, we know those folks. We have those lists, and we constantly are updating those lists. So we know exactly who the target households are, and then we market to those people on behalf of our franchisees. One thing that's unique about Buzz Franchise Brands, which is one of our competitive advantages and some of our special sauce as a company, is that we have a really strong marketing group that support our franchisees across all of our brands and specific to each brand. So in our case, in Pool Scouts, we have what I call the three-legged stool of marketing, which is we do direct mail to these target households that I mentioned to you earlier. We do digital marketing, which includes search engine optimization, handled in-house by our team. And then we help them manage their paid digital side through agency that we work with in the case of Pool Scouts and our other brands. And then we support them on the community-oriented side of things, which is we have creative people in-house that do, graphic design, videography, whatever, to help create campaigns for them for their local community marketing. And then we share those across the franchise systems. So at the end of the day, I would describe that as we do a lot for our franchisees to help get the phone to ring or get the clicks to happen, to help them acquire customers. And then to the core of BFB is we're extremely data driven. We literally, and I've worked in corporate environments, as Zach knows, in the past, including financial services and DuPont, corporate world, et cetera. I have better access to data here than any place I've ever had. And we share that data with our franchisees. So there's a real keen ROI, viewpoint, looking at real data to make great decisions on how we deploy marketing and what we do at the franchisee level and at the system-wide level as well.
So I've seen that marketing engine, behind the scenes, because I've been able to go to the location before. But something that I thought was ridiculous when I first heard you say it, and I still like hearing it now. I think it's ridiculous that it works, but it is direct mail, right? Direct mail is an avenue that you guys take. You guys have figured out what works. You figured out the frequency that works. So like to me, I think about my mailbox, and every time I go there, there's certain types of mail in a mailbox, right? There's like bills, right? Then there's just the junk stuff, and then there's the packages that my wife has bought. And this is a daily thing. Most people are probably in a very similar manner, right? What are you doing with those mailers to get them to be seen? Because with so much garbage in so many people's minds that are in that mailbox, you guys have been able to make that an angle that actually works for your target customers. And it just seems, I think the word I used was ridiculous. Like it's ridiculous that actually works still in 2023, when most people would say, nah, direct mail doesn't work. I think it can work too, in some of the things that I've done, but like from an actual mailer, the way that you guys do it, like it's incredible that it works. So like
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things to note about direct mail. For our case in Pool Scouts is we are sending direct mail cards with timing, offers, and to specific target households. And it is the most focused, defined piece of marketing that we do, specifically to pool owners with in-ground pools and incomes above 100 grand. So we've got timing, we've got who we're targeting. So, it's our second leading customer acquisition source, but it's the most targeted brand awareness campaign that we actually do on top of that. So when we find our customer acquisition happens, our first is digital, which is a mix between paid and SEO and organic. But we know they've received the card. We do matchbacks all the time, right? Or they might, call because they saw a vehicle going down the road, but they've already seen our direct mail cards. They've seen, community oriented stuff. And then finally they determine that digital is the reason or the mechanism they're going to use to finally respond to us. It used to be the power of seven, 7 impressions before you would kind of respond to a brand. I think with digital now it's more than that. But it's very, very focused. Zach, another thing is, and I think you can all probably shake your head a little bit now where you say, okay, how many of, I take my personal self and say, how many of my bills do I not even get a bill anymore? Like for me, I set them up on automatic billing or payment, and my Verizon bill or whatever, they just charge my card or ACH the money out or whatever it might be. So my mailbox these days, there's almost nothing in there. There's so many days where I go into my mailbox and I'll pick up 1 piece of mail or 0 pieces of mail. So I think for us in 2022, and this year's tracking well, we had the best direct mail response rates that we've ever had since we started the business in 2016. So response rates are there. I think that there's just not this, other than times when you get into the political landscape where you're getting bombarded with mail, of course. You don't get that much mail. So I think that's helped fuel the response rates have been really good. And then back to our specific case with Pool Scouts is like we're targeting people, like people that have pools in their backyard that need our service. In the case of our seasonal markets, which we're in, we'll target them with an opening offer or a pool closing offer at the right time when they know they're going to need that service or when they don't want to do it themselves in many cases too. So a lot of things I think help drive those response rates. So while it's old school in a way, it's timing, it's frequency, it's target, etc.
Are you sending those direct mailers to current customers too, or once a current customer comes on?
We filter them out because often they include an offer to incent a new customer. Once somebody becomes a customer, we filter them out of getting the direct mail, so that we're not sending an offer to somebody that's already, got an offer and is paying regular rate for the service.
Yeah, I mean that's so smart, and I wish that more people would do it because there's certain companies where I'm like, you're offering a new customer a better deal than me, who I've been a loyal customer for 6 years, and it's just like I feel like I should get a little something for the loyalty. So I wish that's so smart.
I'll tell you something else that's come back that's kind of pandemic related, and I think we'll all shake our head on this one too, is the QR code, right? The QR code was there a while back, and then thanks to the pandemic and menus being the devil, right? Because you were going to transmit COVID through a menu, everybody got used to going to a restaurant and scanning their QR code. Well, QR codes are now on our direct mail cards, and the response rates on QR codes have been great as well. So something that came back as a result of the pandemic, but so trackable from a digital perspective, all those things that help. In the case of direct mail for us, we track everything. We've got unique phone numbers, of course, to understand what response rates are, conversion rates, et cetera. And then the QR side of things, which makes it even easier from a tracking perspective too.
Yeah, I mean, it just from a marketing message, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I mean, from your all standpoint, it's like, gosh, let us do the work. You enjoy the pool. I mean, it's just like, to me, like the work involved with maintaining it is just overwhelming. Oh, same with boats. Like, I mean, I'm surprised there's not a boat service out there, because it's like, gosh, everyone's always working on their boats. That it's just that to me is enough to be like, I'm just not interested. But
that's why people go to botels. They put their boats in those things, and they probably get all that work done, something like that. So when I'm running in my neighborhood, when Tim's running in his neighborhood, when we're driving through, the number one thing that you'll see on a weekly basis is lawn mowing companies. Is that a model that you guys are interested in getting into, and have you explored it? Because it seems like there's
so competitive to me. It almost seems like a race to the bottom. But I'm curious.
But it's not very polished either, if you really think about it.
Yeah, we're constantly evaluating additional opportunities for both new and acquisitions. As Buzz franchise brands, and we've looked at a lot of different things. There's there's a pretty formidable company out there in the franchise space called the Grounds Guys, which is a franchise that's in the landscaping business side of things. So there are franchise companies out there that do that. It's not a model that that we've looked at actively to try and pursue. I mean, we've investigated it, researched it, but that's not one that we've gone down. But it is similar to the pool business, the opportunity to professionalize that is there. I think what we've seen, because often our franchisees they've got referral partnerships at a local level with landscaping companies that do stuff that they don't do, and those kinds of things. The focus on the landscaping, where it seems like people are making a lot of more money, would be on the more robust hardscapes projects and those kinds of things. And the cutting the grass at the end of the day is kind of a ticket to the game to get to the bigger business, rather than just the cutting of the grass business, which maybe, Tim, as you indicated, might be a commodity product, which is price driven, which is not necessarily how you make money.
So you said one of the other brands is the holiday lighting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's our brand is Wonderly, and we recently rebranded it. We launched it last year, and I think Buzz Franchise Brands and particularly our relationship with Mosquito Joe franchisees that came in under Buzz Franchise Brands has always been really solid. And the Mosquito Joe business, depending on where it is, like Pool Scouts, depending on where it is a seasonal business in some cases. The season's always a lot longer than people think it is, even in Detroit or Boise or Hartford, Connecticut, where we have locations. We're working through the end of October into November, etc. But there is an opportunity for this kind of bookend business, and we really looked at the holiday lighting business as that opportunity, and started what it was called originally. Wonderly is what it's called now. It was originally called Grand Illuminations last year, with many of our former Mosquito Joe franchisees and some Pool Scouts franchisees being part of the inaugural group of franchisees. So really kind of the opportunity to take the season ending of Pool Scouts, for example, and then having this holiday lighting business, which the season is really October, end of October, November, December, with takedown of the lights in January. So we just saw a great opportunity to do that, launch the business, and have had a lot of success, to the point whereas in our second year now, we have 24 franchisees already in the system for Wonderly, which is just a great adoption. But we're providing the same kind of support with Wonderly, and it is a target household, not the pools obviously, but higher in threshold, a single family home kind of situation. And then when we started the brand, we brought in some folks who had done the business as well, to help with the unit economic model and the credibility side of things right out of the gate. So yeah, but it works. If you think about the way that it matches up, Pool Scouts in the greater Detroit, Nora Farhad is one of our franchisees there. She's got Pool Scouts and she's got Wonderly. And so she's using the same technicians, and, in many cases has the same customer base that she can share. So there's just a tremendous amount of synergy there. And then that business winds down, by the third week of January, everything's taken down. And then you're kind of getting ready to ramp up the Pool Scouts business in March.
Do the households? That's what I was going to say. Do the households supply the lights and the ornaments, or do you all?
So the business
do
model
that
is,
soup
in
to nuts?
essence, we're providing the lights, we're taking down, storing them, and then we, in most cases, we're installing them the next year, basically. So it's a pretty cool technology-oriented business too, where we go out to a household, we show them what it looks like on a tablet, and you can kind of see it, and it's a real, there's the ability to do that virtually with some cool tools there. But, it's one of these businesses, like back to, you mentioned, Tim and Zach, about giving your time back. Do you really want to do this yourself, or do you just want to show up and, holy cow, look at our holiday lights, and they're up and they're running. We're the envy of the neighborhood, and we didn't have to do it ourselves. And then we don't have to get up on the ladders and, do all this kind of stuff. And it looks great. And we're paying somebody to do it.
What's such a pain too, to have to go up there. Luckily, we don't actually put lights on our house, only inside. So luckily we don't have to deal with that. like, I didn't make that decision. She did. And I'm like, I'm fine with that. Like, I don't have to go up on that roof and do it. Like, but it's a lot of work, you know, is making it look pretty, having someone come to do that. It makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Well, and I met, there's someone that I know, his wife doing the holiday lights by herself, fell off the ladder, and she's wheelchair bound. She will be for the rest of her life. I mean, it's just tragic thing. And man, it's just, that's just ladders, roofs, not my deal.
Yeah.
Stay away from it all. No, that's brilliant. Right, so, my wife and I, we were talking just last night. We were like, golly, all the people like Halloween decorations, like that just continues to increase more and more and more. I mean, people are going crazy over it these days.
Yeah, it is. And, I think just that the home services businesses, you're always, thinking about, do you want to do it yourself? I mean, certainly like I would say like the first thing that people think of in home services is like house cleaning, right? And so obviously we have a brand, Home Clean Heroes, which does residential home cleaning. But you think about if you're having somebody come to your house once a week or once every other week or once a month, whatever it might be, to clean it, you're more apt to buy services that are similar to that: pool cleaning, holiday lighting, whatever it might be that's there. So I think the opportunity for synergy from a customer perspective is really strong. So when you get used to paying for services that you don't want to do yourself, at the end of the day, and that's you're either a do-it-yourselfer or you're not. Like I think there are things that I'm not a do-it-yourselfer necessarily. I'm a different stage of life-wise. I probably was a lot more so when I was younger, but I don't. There's things I just don't want to do anymore, and I'd rather spend my time doing other things. So I think that's part of understanding who your customer base is. But there's a lot of synergy in our brands as far as who the customer base is.
Well, let's jump into the time warp machine. It's March of 2020. You find out that the world closed. Immediately freaked out, or how did that go? Because it ended up being good for you guys.
It really did. Man, I can, we're original. Our original reaction was like, how are we immediately going to be impacted? And right from day one, we were deemed an essential service. And that was a big deal because that meant we could keep operating and doing our business. And with Pool Scouts, we're not in people's homes, we're outside. And so in most cases, we've got a single technician driving around in a vehicle who's going out and cleaning, maintaining, or repairing somebody's swimming pool. So we were very fortunate to get that news early. And then what happened was everything kind of closed down. So people's residential swimming pools in their backyards were like a safe haven. And then you had, of course, you looked at what happened across the country. You had, people were spending more time and energy and money in their homes, equity at super high rates, where properties had appreciated, interest rates were very low. So people were like, well, we can't go on vacation. This is closed. We're going to invest our time and energy and money into our homes. And that fueled pool construction across the country at unprecedented rates, to the point where 2022, 2021, you saw 24% growth in pool construction across the country. Unprecedented, never seen it like that ever. So, that meant a lot more pools that were being built that need to be cleaned, maintained, repaired, etc., which has really helped fuel the growth for our business. So we were growing like crazy amidst so many other businesses out there that weren't. So that helped fuel franchise growth as well for us, as a brand too. So, we were like one of these pockets of excellence amidst a lot of challenging businesses out there during the pandemic. And that has, helped fuel us. Of course, we were focused on what can we do to safeguard our franchisees and technicians. What kind of protocols can we put in place? How do we make sure that everybody's kept safe? At the same time, some of the challenges that we had, Zach, which everybody saw, were like supply side challenges. So for us, 2022, 21, getting our chemicals and products became more challenging and more expensive. So we had to do a lot to support our franchisees during that process. And that included, sourcing and vendor diversification, and in some cases, buying stock of products for franchisees in certain areas so that they could have access to bigger buys to make sure they got what they needed. Because like many franchise systems, we help them determine where to buy the ketchup packets and how much they're going to cost. So we did that. We had to get really involved in that, and that included vehicle procurement as well. Because for us, Zach, I know you've seen our vehicles, and Tim, you've seen our vehicles. They're branded rolling billboards down the street. Well, they weren't easy to come by either. So we had to figure out. We originally sourced them in one place, and then we had to figure out, that didn't work. We had to find multiple places to buy vehicles for our franchisees or help them get their vehicles and wraps and all those kinds of things that we do. So some challenges ultimately that came out of it, but overall we were impacted in a positive way with what happened.
How is now that we're on the other side of that coin with interest rates being so high, have you felt any effects on this end?
Not really yet. We look at our customer acquisition and growth. We're 50% over last year's system-wide revenue number. Our growth and share of the wallet revenue per customer is 17% year-over-year growth as well. So we're getting more revenue out of the same customer base and growing our customer base materially as well. Some of that is, of course, the new pools that have been built over the past couple of years, and then just growth overall. At the end of the day, we provide a more professional approach to a historically non-professional business, and customers get it and they like it, and they appreciate it, and they refer us. 20% of our customers have come through referrals, which is a great testament to the brand value overall. So I think we've seen some improvements. For instance, on the supply side, it's a lot easier to get chemicals and products that we need, and in some cases the prices even come down, which has been good. Vehicles are still a challenge, and you can see what's going on in the world with that might continue for a while. They're more expensive than they ever have been. Home equity is, of course, high, but interest rates are low. So how that will affect us, Tim, is if you're borrowing money to construct a pool, that's going to slow down substantially.
Sure.
So that end of things will,
Yeah, and I would imagine, I mean, it's just, that you're going to have to stay in your house because if you were to sell, you have to move somewhere. So if you're going to stay in the house, you're going to stay in the house, then that might be something that you would explore. And I would imagine once people get a taste of your service, there's not a lot of people that are like, you know what, I really miss cleaning the pool. I'm going to go back to doing that. I just can't see that happen.
My in-laws have a pool and they complain about having to clean that thing all of the time. I mean, they're just like, it is the biggest pain. But they're what do you call them? Doers or DIYers?
Do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah, do-it-yourself. They're DIYers. So I mean, it's
DIYers. Which is a segment of the audience.
I have to be pool boy when I'm there, skimming a little bit. I get there, gotta get all the it's.
We put you to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I work hard so I don't have to be a do-it-yourselfer. I just value my time too much.
Yeah, we do a lot of customer segmentation every year, and we do that across our franchise system to really understand who our customers are, and then we share all of that data to know, and that plays into our marketing. That from a digital perspective, clearly we have a segmentation of who we're trying to target there as well. So and even markets differ. We have a lot of franchisees in Florida and Texas where weekly pool service is the norm. Everybody's got kind of somebody who comes and does that, but that's not always the norm in some seasonal markets where people don't even know that you can pay somebody to open it and service it every week and close it, and you don't have to do it yourself. So sometimes, depending on the region of the country or the territory itself, you have different marketing messages. But once you get into that market, people understand it. And the high end of the marketplace doesn't want to do things themselves, as a lot of them already right out of the gate know that. But I think there's a fair bit of that opportunity to tell people you don't have to do this yourself. We'll do it for you.
Historically, owning a franchise, I think in people's mindset, was something that was unobtainable, something that was fairly very, very, very expensive. if I recall, you guys have a kind of different spin on that, where it's not as astronomical to get in. Is that still the case? How do people get involved and stuff like that?
Yeah, part of when we look at brands and look at opportunities, we're looking at the investment, in a franchise disclosure document, which is the agreement between the franchisor and the franchisee. There's a section of it called the item 7, which is really the initial investment. And that's like, what does it take to get started in this business? And we really like our category in our section, which is really all of our businesses, are around under $150,000 to get started in. And that includes a full year's worth of marketing and cash flow for 3 months and other, startup costs that are involved in the business. So lower cost investment is generally true with home service and businesses, because you don't have an expensive bricks and mortar real estate play, which, if you think about starting a fast casual restaurant, you got to build out, you got real estate, you got a lot of upfront costs that are involved in that. So in our case, we really like lower cost franchise brands, because we can target who we're trying to look for from a franchisee perspective. So that's fun in sharing that story and being in that category as well.
So if people that are interested in becoming a franchisee, like, what are the things that you look for? In order to, do they have to be, are they typically going to be the ones to do the pool servicing, or would they immediately hire that service out?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tim. And I think this is really when anybody's researching franchising, they really have to think about what the important factors of what kind of business they want to be in. So if I look at our brands independently, in the case of Pool Scouts, the work that we do, I call it like the billable hours. We're at residential swimming pools, cleaning, maintaining, and repairing them, usually Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. Sometimes on the weekends and seasonal markets, we're service pools, or if there's a rain day or whatever. But those are when our billable hours are. In the case of our British Swim School, same thing with Home Clean Heroes. In the case of British Swim School, the work of teaching kids how to swim is often done during hours when the kids are out of school or on the weekends. So sometimes when the work is done is an important factor to consider if you're looking at a business, right? If you think about restaurants, you think of the hours of restaurants and when they are. We don't want our franchisees out cleaning and maintaining pools. Now they need to know how to do it, but we want them focused on building their business. And there's always are you working on your business or in your business? Because of that side of things. So we're looking for folks, in the case of Pool Scouts, that want to build a big business. Our most mature franchisees will service over 1,000 customers. That's a lot of customer relationships. That's a lot of vehicles and technicians that are out there in the field, and a lot of things to manage at the same time. A lot of balls in the air that you're juggling, as it may. So I think those are things to think about if people are looking at franchising or just any business whatsoever. What do you see yourself doing? In a franchise, you have defined business model, unit economics, roles, responsibilities. You have a playbook that you're running with, as opposed to being, a true entrepreneur where you got to figure everything out. Like, you get all the systems, like I mentioned, the ketchup packet thing, all that you're going to get that with any franchise system. Some do it better than others, of course. But you've got defined roles. So Tim, we don't really want our franchisees necessarily out there cleaning pools. But in the beginning, they should know how to do it so that they can teach people how to do it. And of course, we train all of that as well. Of our 49 franchisees, in the past we had one that was from the pool business. Everybody else has come from outside of the pool business. So we have to teach the technical component of it as well.
You mentioned how much data that you collect. It's more than any other company that you've ever been involved with. How are you kind of understanding what that data is telling you? Because I think oftentimes we can be getting we can read data one way, but really it could be read a different way. Like, what do you do to make sure that you're reading the data that you guys are receiving in the way that is the most accurate?
Great question. Great question. First of all, I would say we have here made investments that are pretty substantial at the Buzz Franchise Brands level. We have data analysts on our team. So Michael's our CFO and leads a team of folks, including Edward Barham, who's our lead financial analyst, who really makes sense of so much data. We've made an investment in Tableau, which is really a data congregating system that allows you to take data from multiple systems and make sense of it and make it reportable on a regular recurring basis. So to put that into practice, I can sit at my desktop here and look how everybody across the franchise system is doing, how they did yesterday, look at marketing responses, look at so many different things, customer acquisition, retention, dollars, you name it. And have access to that. But then we provide report cards to our franchisees so that they're constantly able to monitor how their business is doing compared to other franchise locations, et cetera. So it's really an investment, and that's a testament to Kevin Wilson, our CEO and founder, Brian Garrison, our COO and president, of just truly being data oriented, but making it accessible so that we call it, we want to make, and we literally have values in our company, and one of them we call is acting with purpose, and that's like gut-based decisions are not what we want to do. We want to use data to make really good decisions and then see how it looks across the entire franchise system or across all of our franchise systems. So it's been an investment that Buzz Franchise Brands has made that's substantial, and it's ongoing and recurring, and it's led by some unbelievable people that make sense of it.
Well, this is episode 180. And I think that you are probably the most knowledgeable in terms of numbers of all the different guests that we've had. I was thinking the same thing. It's quite impressive. And to me, it's always been a direct correlation. The people that know the numbers better than anyone else have the most successful businesses than anyone else. I mean, it's always been a direct correlation.
Yeah, it's so easy in the beginning of a franchise too, when you're first starting out. You don't necessarily look at the numbers unless somebody's telling you what to look at and what matters. In the home service business is certainly what we do across all of our brands. It's all literally your initial success and subsequent success is all operating above the line, is what I call it. And it's really, so you've got operating above line, you got to generate revenue. And in our case, you got to acquire customers and servicing them on a regular recurring basis. So you're generating and keeping customers and generating revenue. And then for us, it's managing two key things. It's your labor and your cost of goods sold, which we charge for the chlorine tablets or the shock or the products that we administer. And so you're managing the margin there at a gross profit and gross margin level. If you can do that well, the costs below the line are going to flow pretty much as they flow. But in the very beginning of their startup of their business, they have to literally look at that on a per job basis, because the customers come and you got to drive all the way over here and then all the way over here. And over time, you built up this route density where you're a lot more efficient. But if you're not measuring at a per job level, you can get, not feel great about the results, knowing that you're having to spend a lot of time driving. But that changes pretty quickly over time as our customer routes become dense. That's true with our home cleaning business, Home Clean Heroes as well. So it's, and same with Wonderly. So we're trying to, get dense routes of customers. You have predictability, scalability, and, we're helping them constantly take this forest view as opposed to the trees view, which is not easy to do when you're starting a business. But if you have data that helps see that, you kind of make daily decisions on changes as opposed to waiting until you get an income statement that's, 45 days after the month, or you know what I mean, and you haven't had the ability to make that change and impact and drive efficiency.
Being so data driven, do you teach the people that are in the households to talk to the customers to find out and get their feedback, so you can find out what to add, what to take away, what to expand upon, or are you we don't even want to be seen, we just want to make sure that you have crystal clear water in your pool, beautiful holiday lights, and a clean home?
I'd say that it's kind of a dual answer there. We want to know. We actually, across all of our brands, we use a net promoter score system that is, we work with a company called Web Punch to do that, who does a fabulous job. Every franchise location has their own NPS, net promoter score. It's something that we send out surveys to all of our customers on a regular recurring basis So we're on the pulse of knowing when customers feel great about us, when they want to refer us, etc. And then the NPS is really simple. It's rate us 1 through 10. Would you refer us to a friend or family and provide any sort of comments? We look at those on an ongoing basis and understand what customers are thinking about us. We, of course, measure referrals. In the case of Pool Scouts, we have a product which we don't want to sell, or we don't necessarily, it's not selling, but it's called the Scout Guarantee. We guarantee our work. If we didn't do a great job, we'll come back out and do the service again. And so that's something that we measure across all of our franchise system. And it's a free service, so you're not getting revenue for it. So that's not something you want to be doing, but it's important to kind of guarantee the work and back up what you're doing at the end of the day. So we do know that information, and we share that, of course. Although franchisees get all of that information transparently. From a data perspective on who our customers are, we share that at a macro level with the franchise system so we can understand. And then, of course, we try and bring that into how we target who the target customers are once we know more about them on a regular recurring basis.
A lot of businesses use the Net Promoter Score, which is basically, I think, 0 to 10 score, and you pick how likely you are or how happy you are, something like that with it. Like, and it seems to be very effective for people. It seems obviously very simple as well, but a lot of people don't use it. Like, how did you guys decide that that was the scoring system that you were going to use? And do you look at other things? And like, is it accurate? Like, I mean, obviously it seems to be somewhat accurate because you guys are using it a lot, but like, it seems too good to be true.
It's not. And I think, I'm a huge proponent of it. And I always, so in Pool Scouts, I am super proud to say that the NPS for Pool Scouts across the system right now is 78. And so often we think of grades. And so 78, man, that doesn't sound that great. I've got a son who's a junior in college, and he told me I just got a 78 on my test. I'm like, that's not that good. You might be able to do a little bit better.
C+.
In the case of NPS, it's really good. It's really good. So, measuring the Net Promoter Score of an individual location or of a brand is a very strong leading indicator of the health of the brand. And it is a true indicator of the referrals that will come out. And I always, when people are asking about this, I'm like, okay, just go out and Google NPS of leading brands that you see. You won't find many that are at 78. And I'm talking about brands that historically have an unbelievable, reputation, like a Ritz-Carlton, or, you got so many that are just known for exceptional service out there. Our NPS is one of the highest that's out there. And I generally do a benchmark study of this when we're at our convention, just to kind of share. But it's something that we look at on a regular basis. If we see a franchisee with a low Net Promoter Score, there's something going on. It might be that they've gone through people challenges. It might be that you've got a technician that has constantly provided poor service that you need to know about. We have all that transparency of data to be able to see it, but it also gives us an awesome opportunity to reward great performance on behalf of a technician or a location. We celebrate it, and then we also coach to it when it needs to be.
How long were you in operation before you started using NPS?
We did it in our first year, and this is one of the advantages, Tim, that we had, because Mosquito Joe, our first brand, was already using NPS. We were able to scale so many systems and best practices from being a part of Buzz Franchise Brands, and seeing what had worked really well for Mosquito Joe, and we've done that with all of our brands. So we started from day one with the NPS, and it's been great.
One of the outcries that you'll hear from many business owners, it appears, is that no one wants to work, and it's really hard to fill jobs. It's really hard to get people out there. Is that the case? What are you doing to fix that, to remedy that?
Yeah.
Like, when you hear that, like, what's... Great
question. People always ask me, particularly if we have a candidate who's a prospective Pool Scouts franchisee, and I'm always like honest about this. Like, what's the hardest part of this business? And the answer is 100%. People are always the hardest part of every business that I've ever been involved in. Now, I've never been fortunate enough to be involved in the internet widget that didn't need any people, that just somehow captured a margin off of something there. So I've always been involved in people businesses. Now, in the case of Buzz Franchise Brands and Pool Scouts, what do we do to support support recruitment, employee tracking, etc. for our franchisees. We afford systems. In our case, we use a couple different systems. We have a system called Career Plug, which really facilitates recruiting employees. We have a corporate relationship with Indeed, corporate pages, job description standardization, the process of recruiting and advertising for positions. So we help them with the tools that help them recruit people. Now, as far as keeping people and retaining people, that's a little bit of a fine line because of, we don't hire people for franchisees. They hire their own employees, and we can't. There's a joint employer rule that says those are your people. They work for you. You pay them, etc. You might have seen some news around this, with what's going on out in California with fast food restaurants and mandating certain wage rates and the ability to potentially unionize those things that have happened, been pushed, not happened yet, fortunately, because that would, in many cases, decimate the franchise model. Because if you can imagine, a franchise location in, somewhere in the deep South in a rural location having to pay the same wages as New York City, it just wouldn't work. You couldn't capture the service rates in our business to justify the same rate. So there is a line there, but we do provide a lot of support to help the franchisees recruit people. And that helps because a lot of, depending on where they come from, franchise candidates have different backgrounds. Some of them have hired people and have done all this and are great interviewers, and others haven't. Others have done different things. And so we really have to assess that and provide support where necessary.
In terms of how fast you scale or expand to different franchisees, can you do that at scale, or do you limit that to a certain number per year?
So that's a good question, and Tim. So I think when it comes to an individual franchisee, we will award up to 3 territories per franchisee, but that's really dependent on what their balance sheet looks like, their ability to invest. Because in our case, and when we would do that, they would open up territory 1, 12 months later, they would open up territory 2, 12 months later, they would open up territory 3. But we're really at this point, especially now being into this since 2016, we're really measured on that approach to understanding, do you really have the capital to invest in a second or third territory? Because when you open up a second or third territory, initially it's a drain on your business because you're geographically expanding out. You don't have that efficiency. You don't have the same startup costs as you do in your first territory. However, it's going to drive down somewhat your profitability as you get out there and expand geographically, right? So we limit from that perspective. As far as the growth of the franchise system, really that is the health of the brand, what we call the validation of the existing franchisees, because right out of the gate, when we have a franchise candidate, we provide them with a process, we call it the investigative process, to learn all about Pool Scouts. We give them the list of all the Pool Scouts franchisees. They can call them up and say, hey, would you do this again? What do you think? Etc. So there's a transparency there that, helps develop. And then there's just, the market. Do you get into target markets? It's about finding, we call it awarding franchises, not selling them. And that's important because our franchise relationship, the FDD, as we call it, the franchise disclosure document, is a 10-year relationship. I describe it as a marriage. You better be super stoked going into that marriage out of the gate, both parties, and it's a relationship that you're building and fostering over time as well. So, it's about finding the right candidates with the right profiles at the right time in their lives to make, that decision on awarding them a franchise or not.
I find that just even with my clients where I have to figure out, make sure it's going to be a win-win for both of us, that it's not going to just be you guys paying me. It's got to work, because otherwise both sides of the equation are not happy with each other. And it's yeah, great, you can pay me, but I know you're not going to actually do the things that I'm asking you to do. So does this make sense? And I think that's so smart on your part, because yes, it would be nice to be able to have 1,000 of these things, but really if 950 of those are going to go away this year because they weren't the right candidates, we've done ourselves a terrible job of understanding this to do what we wanted to. And I commend you for that, because I think a lot of people would not take that approach.
Well, you understand a profile of candidates as you have a more robust franchise system too, right? You start to understand the skills, what your most successful franchisees look like from a skill set, an aptitude perspective, etc. And so you're able to kind of build more of a profile as the brand matures, which is helpful too. And that's true with all franchise systems too. That said, we have incredible diversity in our franchise population, which I love. I mean, we have veterans. Some of our most successful operators are women in a historically male-driven business with the full service business. We've got just a great group that come from business backgrounds and lots of things. So you can't judge a book by its cover at all, but you can certainly understand the skill set and aptitude that help you make better selections when it comes to prospective franchisees.
You all been approached by Undercover Boss yet?
We have not. There are a lot of franchise systems that have, and most of the brands that I watch that show sometimes. I'm always intrigued by it. So yeah, no, not yet. I don't. They generally pick brands that are a bit bigger than Full Scouts are, but I don't know. Maybe someday you'll see me with a
well, because right. It's just at some point they have to. I don't know. Maybe there's just so many businesses that they'll never run out. But I was like, gosh, they've been running that show so long that it's.
Is that show still on?
I think so.
Yeah, I used to watch it back in the day. That was a good show.
Yeah,
it's pretty hilarious. Michael, what's something we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think business ownership in general is such a unique opportunity in our country, and there's so many different models and types of businesses out there that are franchises. And the advantage of a franchise is really the unit economic model, the playbook, and ultimately the support team of people that support franchisees. Different than, once again, true entrepreneurship, where you're going out and starting something from zero and you have to discover and understand every aspect of the business. I think investigating, if folks are interested in franchising, what businesses are out there is should be a fun process. And then identifying, like, is this something you can see yourself doing, investing your time, energy, and money? The way that I describe, when we're talking to candidates, it's such an important relationship, because in most cases, a prospective franchisee might be quitting a job, a corporate job. They're taking their nest egg, maybe their life savings, and they're literally looking at us across the table and pushing it across and saying, help me build long-term wealth, help me build a better work-life balance. That responsibility is incredible. It really is. And so the relationships with the franchisor and the franchisee, they're beyond just a business relationship. It's a personal relationship. You think about it. It's one of the most gratifying parts of what we get to do. And it's a challenge too, because sometimes people's personal situation is dramatically impacting their business and their ability to operate their business. We had a franchisee a couple years ago, unfortunately, he lost his mother and he lost his brother in a really short period of time, and had a divorce as well. And like, this was in a 3-month period. It was like he ended up exiting the system, selling his business. But imagine during that time frame, his ability to operate his business was dramatically impacted. So how do you support that, and how do you move forward? Those are some of the challenges we deal with. But just ongoing coaching. Sometimes in the beginning, you got to be the shoulder for somebody to cry on. You got to pat them on the back, and you got to encourage them to follow the model and keep the faith and all those things. And then you're celebrating successes as well, making sure that you're looking for opportunities to look at milestones and pat people on the back and recognize them, because it's so easy to get your head down and just look at the trees, and not recognize you just hit your 100th customer, your 1000th customer, whatever the revenue milestone is. So those those roles are really fun, but challenging at times too.
Reflect and celebrate. I hear that.
Yep.
Michael, it's been a blast. We appreciate your time. And Data matters. That's what I think.
It sure does.
That's what I think I learned.
The numbers don't lie. They don't lie.
They do not. Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Zach. A pleasure.
Thanks, Michael.
Seeing you guys again. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.